Welcome, everyone. My name is Melinda Hart. You are watching Stamping with Hart. You can find more information about today's video on my blog at www.stampingwithhart.blogspot.com, and I'll make sure I have the information on the screen. I have a very special guest today with me. This is Mandy Keckler. She is a pediatric occupational therapist, and she is volunteering her time to come and talk to us today a little bit about Autism Awareness Month and how we can make crafting a little bit more comfortable or help us understand a little bit better about what our loved ones might need when they're participating in an art or a craft activity with us. So welcome, Mandy. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thanks for having me. This is like two of my favorite topics in the whole world.
I know.
It's my most favorite topic. I'm a pediatric OT. I've been an OT for over 20 years, but exclusively in pediatrics for 20 of those years. And most of that time working with kids on the autism spectrum in some form or another, whether it's in a school or hospital or outpatient or early intervention. So totally something I'm very passionate about, as well as crafting. I had my moment with card making back in the day. I used to go to Friday night card party, and there would be all these card kits and we would make them, and it was so fun. And then when my kids got a little older, I kind of fell away from that, but I totally love it. And I love combining the two, not only because it's things that I'm passionate about, but I think that, you know, we hear a lot in Autism Awareness Month, and the classic catchphrase that seems to be this year is, if you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. And that's really true. Each child, whether they have autism or not, we're all uniquely different. But I think that's really important when you consider a diagnosis or something that it's tempting to lump a lot of stereotypes into. And that's not the case. Each child has different abilities and needs and strengths. But one thing that I could say, I think, each child is alike in that they want to feel successful. They want to engage. They want to please the adult. They want to have a feeling of accomplishment. And I found that to be true, no matter how different that child's communication might look or what their actions might look like. We all want to feel like we did something good. And I think that's where crafts and an actionable activity like this can really be special for a caregiver and a child who may have differing needs and abilities.
Just to give you a little bit of background, if you are new to my channel or if you are new to crafting, my son is autistic and he is nonverbal. He is 6 years old, but he's very intelligent. He's hilarious, and he likes to craft, but over the years, we have learned that there are certain things that really help him be successful that we did not know initially. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about with my platform and with my channel, just in case you haven't had the insight or you haven't had an opportunity to sit in on a session where a kid is doing occupational therapy. I think it can be really mysterious or maybe a misunderstood subject as to what an occupational therapist can do. It's been one of the biggest benefits for my son. And that's why I wanted to have Mandy here today to talk about it, because I know you're absolutely excellent at what you do. Mandy has not personally treated my son, but we do work together in another capacity. And she has all of this wealth of knowledge and experience to share with you today. So that's why we're here. Now, I did do a video, and you can actually see that video where we assembled the kit already, and we did some alternate ideas, and we'll be referencing that today. And we do want to offer the disclaimer that always consult, your the caregiver, the parent, the legal guardian or the medical professionals. What we're doing today is just trying to bring some awareness to the topic. And if you have any questions for me or for Mandy, please leave us a comment and we'll be happy to respond to you if we can. But you're always going to want to refer to that particular child's, family members or medical team. So, okay, Mandy, one of the things that I wanted to have you talk about, if you're okay to do that, is talk about a little bit about what occupational therapy is and how it can help a child on the spectrum, maybe like my son, who is nonverbal or even verbal.
Sure. So in a nutshell, I always tell people like what occupational therapy is we can work with almost anyone at any age, from someone in a NICU to someone approaching end of life. But when someone comes to me and they say, I want OT, my first question is, what is your occupation? What is your job? And with Connor, he's 6 years old. And so his job includes going to school and learning. And that might mean manipulating crayons, scissors, opening and closing a lunchbox. It's going to include getting himself dressed and ready for school, clothes, brushing teeth, manipulating the zipper on a backpack, getting his coat on, getting in and out of the car, and those transitions successfully. Kids at 6, are oftentimes, in general education, those kids are using the bathroom independently. Sometimes when kids have delays or special needs, that's still something that we're working on, because that's their job, to be able to go to the bathroom, feeding themselves, eating, whether it's at lunch, at school, or at home. So occupational therapy can really encompass a lot of things when you consider the person's occupation or their job. And so what we look for is, what are things that limit the person's ability to do that job effectively? And so in kids with autism, and again, I love what you said, that, consult your child's specialists and parents. But in general, some of the things kids with autism struggle with are motor skills. Sometimes there's some delays, like in motor skills, being able to manipulate things like a pencil or scissors. And also a big one is sensory processing. And that's just how they interpret the information coming in through their senses. How do they make sense of it in their brain to be able to produce the output that they want? And so that's a big term. It's a big topic, but in a nutshell, I work a lot with kids on that maybe they want to have success manipulating scissors or doing a craft, but there's some barriers in the way. So sometimes we'll work at really addressing that sensory system, and I'll go in and kind of work with the nervous system directly. And sometimes there's simple modifications we can make, just at the tabletop or in school or at home, that can help that child be more successful too.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I brought in the Robot Buddies card kit is because it doesn't require scissors. Okay, so one of the things, and what I'll be doing throughout the video, is just referring to some examples of what I know from my personal experience crafting with Connor. So Connor is learning to use scissors, and he actually gets occupational therapy at school. So this is one of the things that we can work on with him at home. But I might not always want him to feel like he has to work, or we might want to do that in moderation. So to be able to put together a kit, maybe do, put together one card, make it simple, and then not require the scissors. But then after he completes that card, maybe later on do something where he could practice with his scissors for a little bit. So what do you think? So if a person is in a craft room, or they're trying to work with a child who's having some motor difficulties, let's just say like fine motor with like pinching or with cutting, or if they have trouble writing, they wouldn't necessarily be able to write in the card. One thing that we do for Connor is, the way he signs a card is we put ink on his hand and he stamps it. So what can people do if they feel like maybe they're their loved one isn't able to use scissors yet, or they're not comfortable using scissors like during crafting, what can they do?
Yeah, well, a couple things come to mind. And I think the first and foremost, and I'm going to end up repeating this throughout our time together, is to change a little bit of the way we think. When you and I look at a craft kit, like I'm looking at these pieces and parts and I think, okay, where do I start? And when we're working with kids that have some motor or attention deficits, let's reverse that process. Let's go to where do we end? Because what happens when you look at this? It's like, oh gosh, this doesn't look like a card at all. And so immediately, first of all, there can be no visual connection to how can this possibly be a card? But secondly, that's overwhelming. And so when you're just beginning to work with a child in crafting, maybe the first start would be for you to have all the steps done except for the very last thing. Like on that card, for instance, is that where the little speaking box, is that put on separately with a sticker?
Yes.
Yes. So the perfect thing for that card might be to have the stamping done, everything done, and that little sticker, and say, do you want to make a card with mommy? Can you put this on? And they put that sticker on, and it's instantly, you made the card. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at this. Good job. Now let's sign it. And there is an immediate sense of mastery. And then you can build over time the attention, like, oh, put that on, or stamp the robot and then put that on, or whatever. But let's think about immediately giving our kids success and that they accomplished something, they did it, and they don't have to sustain attention for a half an hour to make a card, but also try to do things that they're really hard. And the therapeutic term for that, if you ever hear your therapist talk about that, it's called backward chaining. And you can use that in dressing, in any kind of sequential task that your child does. You start at the end, they finish the last step, and then they're successful. If a child's working on zipping, we tend to give them an open jacket and say, okay, zip. We zip it to here and we say zip, and they go 1 inch up and they've accomplished it. They finished, and that's success. And then we work backwards from there. It's the same thing in crafting.
Okay, great.
But I had a little thing I can speak to the scissors too, if you want. But
yes, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So you talked about scissors, and in OT, we talk about impacting the nervous system and really working with the child, but also having some modifications. So loop scissors are one of my favorite things, because actually cutting and opening scissors, that's really hard. We don't think about that, but it involves two opposing movements in our hand, and that can be really a lot to process. And while we cut, we also have to hold something else, which can be hard. We're having this hand do this thing, this hand do two other things, very confusing. And so with the self-open or loop scissors, you just squeeze and they're spring loaded. So that's an easier step. Also in cutting, you might have noticed I was cutting across the paper. That's really hard. A backwards chaining and cutting is to take a small paper, a strip of paper, put it in the scissors for the child, and all he has to do is cut. And success, you did it. Let's stamp those little wheels right on the paper you cut. Now, who cares if it's not a perfect square? That doesn't matter. That adds to the sweetness of a card, I think. But to be able to say, can you cut pieces and then stamp the wheel? They immediately had success. If they want to do it themselves, you can use a clipboard. Sometimes kids like to be independent, and that can hold it too for them and stabilize, so they don't have to stabilize with the other hand. But if this were on a table, they can do it and still have that success, but not have to coordinate so many things. It's really hard to use both hands together.
I absolutely love that, Mandy. And then the other question that I want to ask is, if a kid is right-handed or left-handed, or maybe they're using both hands, is there anything in particular that people should know for that in terms of scissors? Can you get did you call them loop scissors?
Yeah, if you Google it, it's loop scissors or self-open scissors.
Okay.
These generally are, ambidextrous, like I'm not left-handed, but you can. Now with standard preschool scissors, or scissors like that we would use, generally there's right and left-handed depending on what your child prefers.
So something to consider there. So in terms of attention and focus, one thing that we often work on with Connor, he can hold his attention on a task for about 3 to 5 minutes. And that is something that we've worked on over time. And we might use a timer, or we might let him know, do this and then break, and, you know, give him the option for a break. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about kids who need a lot of activity or a lot of movement, or maybe if they have trouble sitting in a chair for a task. Connor likes to stand for the majority of things that he does. And I know, again, you know, when we're talking about the spectrum, it could be from one end to the other, where a kid is extremely active like Connor, or a kid might be able to sit for, you know, a period of time, just depending. Connor really struggles with that. And we have a wobble chair. We kind of have like a little busy chair that he can kind of sit on, or he stands. And how can we help our kiddos if they need frequent breaks or lots of activities? What are some things that we can do?
Yeah, I think already you listed some great ideas. As far as needing frequent breaks, using a timer or even like a visual timer, whether that's a countdown on your phone, sometimes that can be a little distracting, like a little hourglass kind of timer. And
Maybe something quiet, you mean? Like that's not necessarily loud if sound bothers. Yeah.
Right, the ticking. There's an app I really like on my phone. And it's escaping me now, but I'll let you know and we can put it in here.
Yeah,
but it's a great visual timer, and it's just a circle, and it just shows the countdown of the color goes away until the end. And you can set it for like as small as like 15 seconds up to several minutes. So again, start small and increase. But timers are a great tool. Again, what you said, first we cut and then we jump, you know, however that's going to look for the child. The maybe a little bit harder activity and then their preferred activity. However, I'm like inserting so much therapy stuff here. If you're just beginning to use first then with your child, it's really, really important to use 2 preferreds. Okay. So when they don't know what that means yet, just to teach the concept, you don't want to make first always the harder activity out of the gate, or again, it's not going to be motivating. So that's just a little aside.
Walking through the kits, I'm just going to kind of bring up and, you know, walk through some pieces with you, and maybe we can get a sense of what to do. Now, if a child is having difficulty with the activity, what are some things that people can do? Can they let them walk away, take a break? Like, what's a good way if they're starting to see anxiety, to keep it positive? Can they just be done?
This is so unique to each child. The first thing that comes to mind is, for me, is to come in and try and help that child calm. And again, depending on your child and how well you know them, sometimes when I've established a relationship with a patient, a lot of like the, you know, like I'll use like deep pressure, whether that's kind of like stroking down their arms or pushing on their little joints, just to give that sense of security and calmness. The other thing is rhythm and predictability tends to be very calming, where unpredictable, unexpected movements is alerting and sometimes creates anxiety. So I might say something like, you know, come beside or behind a child who I get the sense they're starting to get anxious with an activity, and like, you know, go down their arm. Good job, Connor. Good job, Connor. And then say, do you need a break? Like, do we need to walk away? That's totally okay to have a break. In my first choice though is to end on a positive. So if they need a break, to make it motivating to come back, and again, even if it's just that one thing, we're going to do one piece and then all done, so that they do walk away with it feeling that they did something positive, they completed it, and they can be proud of what they did.
Okay, that's great. this is what the kit looks like. And Mandy, just taking your suggestion, it might be a really good idea if they kind of opened the kit ahead of time and maybe made a few of the cards for the kids, just so that they would have a reference point to look at with how to make their cards, right? So they would actually be able to see it completed, and then maybe they could do a step, right? So these are the 3 cards that you could make, or these are the 3 cards that there are instructions for in this box. So we're just going to open it up. All of the contents have already been gone through, but you have the visual pictures, which this is something, pictures really appeal to Connor. He does well with cards and he does well with pictures. On the inside with the instructions, this is what the instructions look like, Mandy. So there's instructions for each of the 3 cards, and they are also visual. So just depending on the developmental, ability of the child, what is your opinion about following these steps? Do you think it would be helpful for them to see the steps right next to the instructions, or would you skip the instructions and just kind of walk them through it?
I like them. One thing I really like is there's not words. So that's a little bit less overwhelming. I would definitely, like I'm looking at this and I'm like, whoa. So I would definitely, make it, okay, this is it. This is just one.
And that's all we're going to do right now, right? One card.
Or even, you could have these cut up into pieces and actually laid apart, like.
Oh my gosh,
like
I love that.
That was step 1, and then as soon as that step is done, you can take it away, or just have that one showing and then cut out this little section and like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. And to really break that up visually, a lot of times these kids are very literal thinkers. And to see all this, it doesn't look like 4 steps to them, but to take literally 1 step and put it on the table with only what they need for that step. That might be so
fantastic. That is such a great idea. The next thing that we have in the kit are these 2 little ink spots. Okay, so these are the 2 different color inks that you could use. I actually love the small ink spots for kids. So what do you think about these, Mandy? These are water-based, but they can stain your fingers. So you might want to use something washable if your kiddo isn't able to, quite handle the permanent inks. But of course, this comes out. It just might stain a little.
So like, if they don't understand what this is, to even allow them to take it on another piece of paper first and say, like, it makes the color. Like, this is what it is. And just show them that, because that's, what is this? This isn't a crayon. This isn't a marker. This isn't paint.
Right.
It's very hard to understand how this is going to make color, or to let them put their finger on it and then make marks to show this is what we're going to color with, because that could be a really foreign topic to some kids.
And if it would be okay for people to bring in those comfort items to use while they're crafting, right? So if the child really loves their crayons, or if they love a particular color, let them use it and let them, write or color on their card, so that they're having their comfort zone, right? They're trying something new, but they also have something that they know how to use. Okay.
Absolutely.
So here is the block that the stamps are going to go on. You actually get one of these in your kit. Now, in terms of its size and its grasp and everything, what do you think? Do you think this would be comfortable for a kid? If we would demonstrate for them how to stamp with it, we could put the stamp on it for them, or let them put the stamp on. So let me get the stamps out while I'm talking about it. We'll get one of our robots. So our robot would actually stamp in 2 pieces here. Let me just show you what the stamp set looks like, because I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, Mandy. So this is what all of our stamps look like, and you would stamp the body of the robot separate from the head. Okay, so if stamping is brand new to a kiddo, do we think it would be better if we did this step for them, or if you let them peel it up off of the backing and put it on their block?
Can you, I'm not familiar with these types of stamps. Then do you take that off and?
Yep. They're removable.
Oh,
You
okay.
just put them on and off
Oh,
there. Okay.
yeah, I think that that's fine. How does that feel? Is that a little bit
Sticky.
sticky?
It's a little bit sticky. So depending on, where your child is, if sticky is uncomfortable, what would we suggest for that?
Right. So if sticky is uncomfortable, what I might do is I'm peeling the back off of mine. And I pulled that robot off, but I have the paper still on it. So could they put it on the stamp, but just touch the paper so they don't have to touch the sticky? So then again, they still feel like they did it, but they don't have to experience that sticky.
Yep. Perfect.
So
Perfect.
that happy birthday, where they wouldn't have to touch the really sticky part, but like the flat part, like you said, and then you just put it on.
I love it. If we start going through the box and we actually get them to put a stamp on the block, that might be a good time for break time, right? Especially if it's something new.
Right. And maybe that's the whole activity for the day, is putting
Okay.
the stamps on.
So if you are noticing a slight difference in the video, is because we had a technical issue and we are back again, just kind of refilming this little segment. So we'll just jump right back in. But Mandy, before we continue on with the contents of the kit, where can people find you? What's a good place for them to look you up?
Oh, yeah, like as an OT, I was going to say, well, I'm here. As an OT right now, I do see kids in early intervention in a couple of counties in Western Pennsylvania. But actually, the greatest way to get in touch with me probably is through our company, Behaviorworx. I'm actually working with a friend of mine, and she recently opened a clinic. I'm the treating occupational therapist there. So it's Behaviorworx Center for Autism and Behavior. So that would be where you can find me as an OT.
Great. And I will make sure that that information is in the description link below. For the next part, when we were talking about stamping, this could be in steps. So like our robot, you stamp the body and the head separately. And that is a two-step process. So that might be a little bit much for the kids. And then for the word stamps, and you can speak to that, Mandy, but like with the word stamps, this is a pretty small die cut for them to stamp into. So what are our thoughts on pressure with the stamping if they're not quite there yet with being precise?
Yeah, I agree. And, this is something that I have had to work through as a mom and as a therapist. When I started as an OT, I was in my early 20s, had no children of my own, and things were going to be just so. And we learned quickly as moms that that's not the case. And as a therapist working with little ones, we really have to decide. And I don't want to say lower our standards, but just change or modify our expectations. And so, for example, if you're making a greeting card and you want to have, very small words in a specific little thing, I think that that's cute and that's totally fine. That may not be the part you choose to have your child do. That would be pretty tough to line that up so it's legible and precisely stamped. But like you said, with the robot, maybe they can do one stamp of the robot body, and then maybe they can pick a sticker head, or maybe you body and they can put the head on, again ending where they have that sense of success and they've done something they can feel really good about.
I love that. And one of the things that like kind of caught my attention with these pieces is that Connor would have a tendency to, being a sensory seeker, wanting to pop these out, punch all these out maybe at one time or punch a couple of them out. And he has a tendency to like to line things up on a table. So just kind of letting him play with that and have a little freedom with that, I think that could be good, right?
Oh, for sure. This is a sorting activity right here. But yeah, to experience that, to hear how that feel or sounds and to feel that pop out, that's totally fun for kids. And,
Yeah.
like going back to using this piece versus stamping a body, I saw in my kit, there were, where is it? Here it is, like extra blank pieces of white paper. So if you allow the child to stamp the robot body on the paper, and maybe it wasn't exactly where you wanted it to be, you could just cut it out and then put it on the card. And that would be an opportunity for them to stamp where it wouldn't have to be so precise.
Yeah, I think, yes, exactly. And let them have that freedom and that confidence with either stamping or with the stickers, which I know we haven't gotten to the stickers yet, so we'll get there. But with our card bases, technically, this card kit makes 9 cards and has 3 different types of card bases. And I know that 9, especially to to us, that's like a big number for a kid to complete in one sitting, right? So how would we handle giving them choices with our cards?
Like with the bases, yeah. Well, first of all, 9 is huge. So and we need to be aware of that in general, the expectations that are high, but also the number of choices that are high. And so if you're okay, this is a great technique for, beyond just crafting with the child, is you create a win-win scenario where you give them choices, whether it's what they're going to eat for dinner or where to school in the day, or in this case, which card they want to make. And you're already 100% okay with any of them. I mean, they're all adorable. And then they get to have ownership over that choice. They get to be in charge of something and choose. And if you think 3 choices might be too much for your child, then maybe just cut it down to 2. Do you want to do this one or this one? And they still get to make that choice, be in charge of something, and feel.
Yeah, I think so too. And for us, we would probably do 2 for Connor. Let's talk about the stickers. So I personally think this is the most fun part of the kit, aside from the stamps, right? Kids love stickers. Connor loves stickers. I love the color combinations on this one. But we were mentioning when Mandy and I were first looking at the kit, that it is completely flush when you first look at that sheet, and that could be hard if the kids are having kind of like they don't have a firm grasp yet, or it could be a little tricky for them to pull that up. So Mandy, do you still have okay, yeah.
This is what as an OT, I've done this with other sticker sheets too. And it's a great tip for allowing kids to manipulate stickers themselves rather than trying to dig their little nails in. I just take the backing off of this. And then when you go to lift a sticker, this one, you can, I don't know, you can't really see, but they're popping right up and you can easily get that off.
Yeah. And the other thing is, looking at a full sheet like that could be a lot, right? I mean, it's you get a fabulous number of stickers here, right? You could do so many activities with this. Exactly. But maybe, and to help them out, they could do, this was something that Mandy was suggesting, right?
Yeah. So we were talking about, with the card backgrounds, limiting choices, and the same thing with the stickers. And, we've also spoken to this idea of sensory overwhelm. Visually, this is a lot to look at. Yeah. And I love the choices, but how Melinda cut those pieces out, maybe if the child has chosen their background, and then you can say, of those 2, which body do you want? Which head do you want? And it's less to choose from, and then a little bit easier for them to get their little fingers around, and they can put those together. This can be a great opportunity for matching or, sorting, all kinds of therapeutic things that you could work into here too.
Yeah. And then, so, just as an example of this, just taking this one white card base. So one of the things we were talking about early in the video is if we started it and then let them finish. So if we did 1 full robot, do you think, or you could do one full robot and then let them do the other, or just put the body on and let them put on the head?
Right. Depending on your child, and this is where you can work on top and bottom. Can you put the head on the top, or put him beside the other robot? And yeah, that's so cute. And with less than a minute worth of effort, look what your child has created, and they can feel really proud of that.
Yeah, I think that that is probably the biggest benefit of this kit, is that it's this simple. If they aren't ready for stamping yet, if maybe that's just too many steps to start out, it could be that simple. I mean, 35 seconds, right? So pretty easy. Yeah.
I wanted to ask your opinion on this too. I don't know if you've done this, if you've used this kit with other pieces, but I'm looking at these stamps and there's some little gears that look like background. Now, one of the things that when I work with kids, sometimes you get a little bit of that impulsivity. And when
Yes.
stamping is, it's a lot fun. And so we want to do a whole bunch. And so I was thinking about that. I would imagine giving my kids one of these background papers and one of these little gear stamps and just being like, go at it, make the background paper. And then you could just put a robot on top, something like that, where if they want to do more, there's an opportunity and it doesn't have to be perfectly precise.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and that's very true of Connor. The one thing with him with stamping is that when he starts to stamp, he doesn't take the time to re-ink, right? He's like, how many images can I get just by repeating this and we just let him, go, because you can get 4 or 5 rounds before the ink is fully gone. So it fades, over time. But yeah, that was an extra step for him. So that process of re-inking, he was like, I don't have time for that. So I think that's one of those things, you can be use your judgment with, right? But yeah, the gear stamps are so cute. There's a bunch of gear stickers too. So if they would want to do all of their gear stickers on a card, I would not stop him from using 20 stickers if he wants, but I do think that, you're right, Mandy, like less is more when you're giving them the sheet options. I was just looking for my scissors and I can't find them, but I was just going to cut out another section of this because these are very easy to segment out.
Right. Right. Like talking earlier, we were talking about the robot, and I love, the body part identification is a great thing for kids, but even I'm looking at these little flowers. So if they had, the robot stamped on and you were able to cut out just the little row of flowers,
yes,
and to say 3, which 1, 2, 3, let's count 3 flowers or whatever. If you wanted to make it, somewhat of an educational kind of task too, that would be a great thing to let them do and just use a smaller amount.
Yes. And so let's talk about the googly eyes. And it's funny because I have a robot here who needs his eye. We'll do this other eye here. But
so
yeah, they're so cool. They're so fun for kids. But this is, to use the technical term, this would be challenging for fine motor, even for us, right? So, this might be something that we need to help them with, or I do have a tool that I can show you guys, but what are your thoughts on them doing the eyes?
Yeah, so the eyes are so fun. I agree with you. From a fine motor perspective, these would be a challenge to manipulate. So I definitely want to see the tool you have. But I also want to just pause and remember, particularly as it is Autism Awareness Month, and not to lump all the kids together, but to remember that one of the hallmarks and one of the things I love the best about being privileged to work with kids with autism is they do see and experience things differently than we do. And so when I open these up, and maybe it's just because I work with kids for 20 years, but I just want to go like this. And I wanted to hear that. I wanted to see them wiggle around. I want to feel the bumps, and to allow that to be part of their process too. We can get really rigid with our steps and our instructions, and those are good. And we do want to have a nice end product, but don't overlook the parts for them that can be special and uniquely fun too. Let them teach you too. This does feel cool.
Yeah, and that's so true. Like we can tend to rush things, right? I would personally, I wouldn't pressure Connor to put the eyes on. I would just let him enjoy it. And then when he was ready, we could try that. Or maybe show him, like you said, a completed card first, like this is where the eyes go.
I think that's a really good idea to have that model, or like you have, does the one robot in the middle, is he missing an eyeball?
Yeah, we're going to put the other eyeball on for our demo.
But that's perfect. You know, like, oh, I'm sure Connor would spot that right away, probably like,
Yes.
uh-oh, what's missing there? We need to fix him. That's great.
So the tool that I was talking about, this is called a take your pick tool. This end I never use with Connor. When you get this, when you order it, it comes with this piece, but I would remove this and have this put away before he would ever even see it. But this side has putty on it. So it's a little bit more, easy to grip. And you can use the putty to pick up these hard to get pieces like the eyeball. So this might be something that I would do for him or with him, just depending on his level of focus at that time, right? So I'm just going to pick it up here. It's kind of hard to do this in the air, but let's see if I can get it. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. I know it's a little bit blurry. I apologize. And then we would just put it right on our little robot. It's so cute, right? So that, this does not come with the kit. This would be, an additional or a separate purchase. But I think in the case of, for anybody who might have issues with the pincher grasp, this could be a great asset, to use, or a great accessory to use. And the one other thing I wanted to reference with you before we go is the alternate cards that we made with the kit. So I will link to the video where we made the alternate cards. So just in terms of activities, Mandy, what are your thoughts on a kit like this?
I love that. I can see like 10 uses immediately for those. Like you mentioned, the matching, and I kind of think of the traditional memory matching game where there's like all the little cards. And this is so nice because again, you can really grade that activity. So say you just want to start with that top row. Maybe you just want to have 2 matches. And so you put those up there like that. And you would say, can you find the 2 oranges or the 2 green? And once they do that, maybe you can turn them upside down and then see if they can remember. And, can you remember, again, like the traditional matching. But another really neat thing that I see there is with that little orange guy is you can say, can you find the big and the little? Where's the big orange and the little orange? Oh, no match. There's the big orange. There's the big brother, and you can talk about big, little, just a lot of uses for those. Another fun thing with cards that you can teach, and again, I might be getting a little bit too much into my therapy lingo here, but kids with autism tend to be very concrete. And so things that actually, are a noun, a physical thing that they can pick up. And we talked about earlier using the timer because time is an abstract term. With something like this is a great way for you to be able to look at other abstract terms like beside, under, on top. Can you put green on top of gray? Can you put orange beside green? Things like that. And they're fun. They're pieces they like, but teaching those directional terms that are abstract.
So Mandy, I just want to thank you so much. This has been, to me, it's invaluable. I've learned so many things, even just recording this video with you. So what I'll do is I'll put together a tip sheet based on some of the suggestions that Mandy made today that you can download if you're interested, and I'll make sure that that's available in the description box below. And again, you can find Mandy at Behaviorworx of southwesternpa.com is the website, and it's the Behaviorworx Center for Autism and Behavior. Okay, so if you guys have any questions regarding any portion of this, let us know. Again, this is just an overview, just some ideas as to how to make crafting more comfortable and fun, and maybe not necessarily conventional, but a way that these kids can really be involved. We really want them involved and successful and feeling confident. And I think this is such a great way to do that. So thank you for spending your time here today.
You're welcome. It was fun. This is truly a joy. This is a great kit and totally my heart. I love it. So
I
thanks for
know.
having me.
We appreciate you. We appreciate all of your knowledge, your experience. It's just, it goes such a long way. I mean, even just cutting up the instruction sheet, just that one thing, I think can make such a difference for so many kids that are maybe just getting started, or like Connor is so curious about my craft space. You know, he wants to get into it. He wants to be aware and involved, but like in his own way. If I start telling him what to do, he might start to back away. But if you have those visual instructions just kind of cut up and broken up into pieces, I think he would just naturally gravitate to doing that. So we're definitely trying that.
Yay, I'm excited. Good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mandy. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye, everybody.